I'm Brandon Amoroso, and this is the D2Z Podcast, building and growing your business from a Gen Z perspective.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to D2Z, a podcast about using the Gen Z mindset to grow your business. I'm Gen Z entrepreneur Brandon Amoroso, founder and president of Retention as a Service Agency, Electric, as well as the co-founder of Scaleless. And today I'm talking with Tyler DeLarm, who's the head of marketing at an unboxing experience platform, which is called UnDigital, and one of the brilliant minds behind unboxing marketing, which is actually something I had never really thought too much about until having you on the show. So I'm excited to get to dive in here. But besides that, he teaches D2C brands how to build relationships, drive repeat business, and apply performance marketing tactics to their most underutilized touch point, which is the unboxing experience. Thanks for coming on the show.
Hey, Brandon, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. But yeah, let's talk a little bit about unboxing marketing, right? So a lot of brands, they care about their packaging. They work hard on their product. They want to ship something out. They want it to look nice. And that's pretty much the extent of what goes into it. A lot of marketers end up passing it off to a fulfillment team after that. And the fulfillment team is concerned about how quickly can it get out of the warehouse, or what materials are going to go in it, how much does it cost. What unboxing marketing is about is basically kind of taking control of that scenario again and being like, all right, well, as a marketer, what messaging do I want to go in here? And how do I get the right message to the right person? And then how do I measure that? I think we've all seen like what Amazon does, right? They throw a product into a huge oversized box and they call it a day, or a little slip. But with unboxing marketing, what we want people to start thinking about is like, how do we start treating this touch point the same way we would our social media or our email, our websites? How do we work personalization into it in a way that satisfies marketing needs, but also like works well with your fulfillment team?
And what are some of the, I guess for context for folks listening, how did you get into this? What are some of the types of brands that you're typically working with? Just for some context for them.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Okay, so UnDigital started, our founder, Ryan Millman, one of our co-founders. So there's Ryan Millman, serial entrepreneur. Guy started multiple businesses off $5,000, turned it into like hundreds of millions in revenue. One day he's out in one of the warehouses at the fulfillment center going like, how do we make this work? How do we make this better? How do I just put a smile on a customer's face? So that's when he came up with this idea to start personalizing some of the content. And at first it started small. It was like just first names on some collateral. And then it got a little bigger. It was like, well, this first time order, we're going to say this. And then the second order, we're going to say this. And we're going to try to add more data. And at some point, they started looking back at, the results of it. Remember, just starting with, we want to put a smile on their face to realizing like, wow, the reorder rates have skyrocketed in this group. Like, how do we do this more? They started doing more and more until finally Ryan's like, you know what, maybe it's a separate entity. It's not just my company. Like, this is something we should probably start showing other people how to do. So at that point, he starts consulting, and they hire a bunch of engineers to build out a platform. And the unboxing experience platform really came into being. And that's where basically we can add templates and personalize them and set like, oh, what order or what different audience segment, like is it this SKU? And we build out messages for everything inside of that. So with unboxing marketing, essentially what we've done is try to take what you would do with your emails, right? So like you've got email audiences that go out to like different emails that go out to different audiences that have different messages, right? Do the same thing with your unboxing experience. And the main reason we're doing that is just like once you get the right message in front of the right person, it increases their conversion rates. So we work mainly with D2C brands, 100% D2C brands, but mainly D2C in beauty. Lots of beauty brands love what we're doing. I think the ability for them to send out personalized routines or cross-sell or upsell or help somebody who had a customer support issue, send them back a message in their next package, like, hey, sorry about that. Here's this, 50% off or whatever. They love that.
And how do you integrate with like the 3PLs, or how do you handle that part of it? Because I remember, with some of our clients, it was really easy to get the 3PLs to include inserts and things like that. Because we wanted to have a separate insert for, subscription customers versus first time customers versus one shot customers. But for one of the clients, it was such an arduous process to try and get the 3PL to do it that we just gave up. We're like, we're just going to not do this.
No, absolutely. Yeah. And as I think as an individual customer, it's hard to get your 3PL sometimes to do some things because it's like, this is extra weight. But we tend to work closely with a lot of different 3PLs because we help bring them, multiple customers, like people that they are really interested in having. And the way we do it is we have what we call in-package personalization printers that sit in the fulfillment center, sit in the warehouse. And depending on their process, because for every 10 warehouses, there's 11 processes, it sits in a certain place or it's a certain type of printer. And basically, whatever their process is, they have a point where they're printing something, and then the insert just kind of comes out right along with it. And then they just drop it in the box. They don't need to know which order it was. They don't need to store inventory. They don't need to track any SKUs. They get their label or whatever, and it comes right out. They take it, they set it in the box, they pack it up. So it actually ends up being much simpler for the fulfillment team than if they were trying to do even generic flyers when they had to do their own inventory management.
Yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. It's sort of just a natural extension of some of the segmentation and personalization that we would do in, post-purchase emails and SMS follow-ups and things like that. And it's also, I think, a better use case than direct mail on that first order follow-up, because you don't have to pay for that extra, cost of getting the piece of direct mail out to the customer. It's literally, going in the package that they're already going to receive as a part of their order.
Yeah. And the great thing about it is, right, like everybody opens their package. So if you tell an email marketer like, hey, this has 100% open rate, like, okay, yeah, I understand that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people have a great message, and they don't always have a great way of getting it read or getting it out there. And the unboxing experience is just like, it's a no-brainer in terms of like, should I put a message to my customer? And they're like, yeah, absolutely. But you don't want to put the same thing in over and over, right? So like the first time they order and the 10th time they order, they should be getting different messages. If I just blasted out the same email to somebody over and over again, they would surely block that or tune it out, or you know. Um,
How do you handle the actual printing though? Especially if you're getting close to that one-to-one personalization where you're including different customer first name, you're including things like loyalty points
sure.
within
So
their order.
all right. So on the unboxing experience platform, it's much like, again, I'm going to compare it to an email platform, right? Where you build out your templates and you choose the tokens that you want to use in your templates. Um, and those tokens get sent over to us through the order feed, like through Shopify or whatever they're working in. Those tokens come to us. They sit in the platform when the order is being packed out in fulfillment. Like they scan something, or at some point there's a trigger in the warehouse, and that trigger calls our system, and it sends the print right over. So it's again as soon as it's a shipping label or something. It doesn't have to be a shipping label. Like whatever they're printing comes out, the piece comes along with it, and it's our printer. So like these are nice printers. Like they're not they're not your Epson at home. It's like it's a manufacturing printer that's going to send something out that looks really high quality.
Well, I joke. I don't even have a printer at my place here. I set it up when I moved in. I ended up changing Wi-Fi's, and then the printer just refused to connect to the new Wi-Fi. And I think I troubleshooted it for like 2 hours, and I just got so fed up, I just threw it out. And now I don't have a printer. And, as soon as I did that, I started to have to print a bunch of stuff. Whereas the last like 5 years, I feel like I've had to print literally nothing.
Like I never printed a thing in my life, and now I desperately need to, and I don't have what I need.
Yeah. I literally will drive to my girlfriend's apartment complex because they have a printer in their business center, and I'm like,
I get that. I get that. I certainly do. No, for after I moved, I actually lost the printer cable, and I was like, I'll find it. I never found it, so I had to like order
I
one.
wish my printer had a cable. It was only, everything's moving towards like Wi-Fi or, all that Bluetooth or whatever it may be. Everything's smart technology now. And that to me just means it's not going to work. So when I was going through a remodel, I went out of my way to make sure that everything was not smart. Like I don't need a smart toilet. I don't need a smart fridge. I just need it to work. And for it to work, it means I don't want to control it through an app because inherently it's going to break. It's going to bother me. It's going to piss me off, and it's going to end up more headache than it's actually even worth.
That's very true. Yeah, maybe we should just change in marketing. I feel like people slap smart on the front of like everything. Maybe we just start slapping functional. And
I'm surprised they're not selling AI, refrigerators and toilets yet. But maybe that's a new company idea.
It's on the way. I'm sure they're going to like put Alexa or something in the fridge.
But hopping back into, because I could rant about this for hours, back into the unboxing experience side of things. What if you're a small brand just getting started? Because I can really see how this would apply at scale. You'd be able to do a bunch of split testing, and you could see how this would impact, reorder rates and things like that, getting people to come back for that second purchase. But if you're a small brand just getting started, how should you think about, the unboxing experience? Would you go even as far as saying that if you're just getting started, maybe you're doing handwritten notes yourself in the packages to be scrappy, and then there's a certain point at which they would graduate into, working with a platform like yours?
That's a great observation, actually, because that is exactly what people end up doing, right? So the people who are interested in, let's just talk the messages for a moment. The people who are interested in doing messages, if they've just started their business, do handwritten notes, write something meaningful, like you know who the customer is. I evaluate a lot of these experiences because basically the platform itself, we have millions of experiences that go through it. And so I'll get them and review them and be like, all right, what was good about this? What wasn't good about this? And the ones that are very personalized, the higher the relevance is, the higher the conversion rate. And so if you're just starting out and you don't have the resources to get yourself like an unboxing experience platform or to build your own personalization tech, just write the notes. There is a diminishing returns on it at a certain point, right? Like, because if you're shipping 1,000 a month, even at that volume, like writing those notes yourself is going to be a huge pain in the butt, and it would be literally impossible to do just as an individual. But it doesn't like even a small brand can test it and be like, wow, this genuinely does work. Because if you put a handwritten note in, a 1,000 packages over a course of several months, and then look back at those reorder rates, the handwritten note ones are going to have much higher reorders. So if you're just focused on the messages, you're feeling like I don't want to invest in a platform, just make some handwritten notes. Or what I've seen somebody do is basically take what looks to be a handwritten note and then just print it on nice stationery and then write the first person's name at the top, so that it's like, all right, all I really have to do is write this person's name, and the rest of it looks really well done. So that's from the messaging perspective. But if you're looking at how do you do your whole unboxing experience, there's actually quite a bit that goes into it between personalization. Obviously, we talked about the messaging, and then like your branding, like what kind of boxes are you using? How are you packing the products? Like, are your products how frequently are your products arriving damaged or not arriving at all? Like, when you're going through your unboxing marketing strategy and you're looking at all these different components and making sure like your packages are delivered, everything is intact, you've got like different materials that make sense to you financially and also look nice. And some people want the exterior of their box branded. Other people do not. They're like, I do not want the exterior of my box branded because porch pirates are an issue for us, and like people really like our makeup or they really like our clothes, so they just steal it right off of the patio. So
That's crazy.
but we do have several guides about like, and this is something anybody could just nab one of our guides and read it. It's like, hey, here's how you do X, Y, and Z for your unboxing experience. Like, you don't necessarily need us to do it. Um, and we encourage people to just test it because so many marketers overlook the unboxing experience as a touch point that they should be optimizing, right? They're just like, I don't know about this, or it's not my responsibility. That's kind of a fulfillment thing, or we've always done it this way. That's every time I hear we've always done it this way, it just makes me cringe so hard.
Well, I think that just goes into, the brands that are willing to actually, test new things and aren't stuck in their ways, whether it's, with the unboxing experience or, you know, when things like TikTok Shop came out, the
Oh yeah,
brands that were there first and the ones who were really pushing the needle on that front are the ones that are reaping the rewards right now. And there's still some brands that are like figuring out, how to get it up and running. That is, to me, one of the biggest differences between, like giant companies and some of the like smaller, like mid-market brands,
right.
but also like what will lead to a brand being successful or not is their ability to, you know, not get in their own way and have that sort of desire to test and try and iterate new things.
Yeah, you bring up a great point with TikTok. Actually, we've had some pretty wild use cases for the technology because again, originally it started out with like, how do we add the first name to something, and now it's gotten to like, um, how do we plug in their first name and the product that they ordered and information about their demographic, and then like maybe tie it back to traffic from TikTok and like feed them the next relevant video in their TikTok thing. And all they need to do is like scan the QR, pushes them where we want them to go, and then like we measure that funnel. So on the one hand, you've got people who are just like, we're satisfied with it just saying like, hey Tyler at the top. And on the other hand, you've got people that are just like, how do we get this QR code to sync back into our funnel and like tie into our other marketing initiatives and, with these 10 other personalization points. It's really wild, some of the clever personalizations that we've seen people create.
Yeah. What are some of your favorites of brands that you worked with?
Okay, so I can't dig into individual brands, but I can tell you about cool use cases that I've seen people using. Okay. One of the cool use cases I like is basically they've had a customer support inquiry, and somebody's upset about something. They got an open package, and instead of just writing them back an email, the brand sends them like a thank you note and like some samples and like a replacement product, and their customers seem to really, really like it. Like they get a lot of feedback on it. Another great use case, and probably the most common use case, is for first time customers. Just people who want to test out the unboxing experience platform is like, all right, put a first time customer campaign in here. Like thank them for trying this, talk about their product, talk about why you made the product, and like getting down to the SKU level. So like anytime a first time customer orders any particular SKU, it's like, oh, they get a really cool thank you note, they get information about the product, why it was made, um, and then they get some sort of engagement piece, like it's like, scan this QR to do X, or to get. It's really to get, because I mean you want to focus on the outcome over like just do this. Um, and those first time customer campaigns get incredible results. Like people who are just trying the platform the first time, or they're just trying unboxing marketing for the first time. Um, I love getting to show them their results at the end of the day, because it's like, hey, your reorder rate was here, and now you're looking at an additional couple $1 million a year, just by this one little insert that you weren't doing before, or you were doing static before. It it's a really fulfilling experience.
Yeah, I can imagine when they're doing it for the first time and you're able to prove out the ROI. Um, and it's one of those things where you almost know that there's going to be some ROI. It just sort of is, whether it's going to be outsized or if it's going to be, you know, on the smaller side. And I think a lot of that probably has to do with the way that, the brand goes about implementing it into their post-purchase experience. So how much of a helping hand do you play in the actual like enablement of the brands? Because you mentioned, some are fine with just doing first name, but I'm assuming that doesn't generate the highest ROI. What do you
Yeah.
do from like an enablement standpoint? Because with a lot of the tech partners that I talk with or platforms, that's the biggest issue is beyond getting the brand to sign up, it's then getting them to actually use the solution in a way that's going to maximize their performance.
Sure. So we've been really fortunate in having the resources internally to get our hands very dirty with the clients, right? So if one of our customers is just starting, we'll make recommendations like, hey, you should run these 10 campaigns. Like these are the ones that have done well in other places. And if you put these together, maybe just even give us the assets, we'll like create them for you and get them set up. So we are like very white glove, very hands on. Like we want to see people succeed in the platform, right? It's not. I don't think we're at a point where we just want people to be like, yeah, go figure it out. Because I mean, with like, I mean, even Facebook, right? Like moved away from this, right? They originally, I felt with their ads platform, it was just like, yeah, you're kind of on your own. And now it's like I can't go 2 weeks without getting a call from them. It's like, hey, how's this campaign doing? Like, do you want to talk about it? And I really think that's the way that people need to do it with their platforms anyway. It's like if your platform works, if your stuff is successful, you should have no problem helping people to understand that and be successful in it. Like,
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and there's more and more effort, I would say, getting put into that by all the tech partners that I talk with and work with, because it is so important. And some of them go more the professional services route where they build it out internally. Others, rely pretty heavily on consultants or agency partners, and then there's a few that have a good mix of both. But I think it depends on the brand and whether or not it makes sense to have that in house or to have it be through an external agency partner or things like that.
right. Yeah, that does make sense. Um, I guess when you're thinking about what makes a platform good, like what are some of the traits you want to see in a marketing platform?
The sort of first and foremost thing at this point is whether or not it integrates with the rest of the solutions that we're using for a merchant. Um, so like, I don't, if we have a client who's using Klaviyo for their email and SMS marketing, we're probably not going to bring on a solution that doesn't integrate with Klaviyo because there's so many options at this point now when it comes to building out your MarTech stack. We're going to go with a solution that integrates with what is the primary driver of all of our retention strategy and tactics. So that's first and foremost. I'd say second is whether or not, depending on the size of the brand, I really don't like platforms that have gated features and functionality behind paywalls. I much prefer the platforms where it's the same for everybody, but pricing is dictated based off of, number of contacts or website traffic or, percentage of revenue or whatever it may be. And so that makes it a lot easier for us as an agency to be able to, implement it across our entire client base versus only being able to use it for those that are able to afford it. That's one of the reasons why we always had trouble getting loyalty programs off the ground with a lot of our clients because they only really work at scale. And also a lot of the platforms, they will limit the features and functionality that we view as being critical to rolling out a loyalty program behind, the enterprise paywall. And so if you're a brand that's just getting started, you're not going to pay $2,000 a month for your loyalty program solution. which might even be like 10x what you're paying for Klaviyo at that point, based off of the number of like contacts and email sends that you're doing. So those are really the two biggest things. And then having that first shared success case is always the hardest but most important. And so we've fallen into a few of our tech partnerships where we will start working with a client and they're already using some sort of app or solution that maybe we weren't familiar with before. And then, now we are. And so we have that first mutual client that we can build a case study off of and have that to take out to the rest of our brands. And in the case where it's completely net new, it's really helpful when we're able to get collaborative with the tech partner around how to get that first client. Some of the tech partners have gotten really aggressive where they're rolling out like implementation programs. So they will literally bring in us to implement the solution for somebody that they just sold and onboarded. So they're basically handing us that first client. In other cases, we'll do some account mapping to figure out who might have the highest ROI. But I think those are all pretty important components. And then once we're up and running with somebody, it really comes down to, whether or not the results are there.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, the results at the end of the day is like, and when that goes back to the first name thing, right? So like, when somebody's using just the first name, right? Like we really want to encourage them to move away from that and like expand and try more, like increase their relevance in some way. Because if they're not getting results, they're just going to leave the platform or find something else that they think is working better. What do you think is like? What do you think is the holdup in marketing with people being like, my unboxing experience is something I should measure?
I think it has to do with, I would say first and foremost, awareness. I had never heard of a company doing something like what you're doing until we got on this podcast. And I feel like there are similar, marketing platforms that we work with right now that were in that same position to even 3 years ago. One of them being like the transactional experience. Up until about 3 years ago, most brands would just leave it to, would basically just leave it to the ecom platform to send out like all their transactional communications. So they weren't personalized. They weren't using that as an opportunity to help, influence repeat purchasing behavior, influence, where they're sending or trying to direct that first purchase customer or subscription customer. But then after the first couple of dominoes started to fall in terms of brands, more marketing awareness, more investment into that channel, now it's much more prevalent. Same could be said for direct mail. Even though direct mail's been around forever, it really didn't have its heyday in the current state of ecom until about a year ago. And it's still building and building and building, and a lot of that has to do with alternative outside factors like the rise of customer acquisition costs on your standard digital platforms. But it also has to do with just awareness and them being at the trade shows and doing the demand generation in terms of sales outreach and getting agency partners on board and doing the co-marketing and all that stuff. So I think a lot of it is just awareness and education, because obviously the value is there, obviously the ROI is there. But I would flip the question on you, in given your role at your company. What are some of the things that you're doing to get the message out more, to have more awareness, to get more brands believing in this as a way to improve retention, increase LTV, all that stuff?
Sure. So, all the things you mentioned, right? We're doing more with mail, email, ads. We're going to these trade shows, events, and chatting with people like yourself. At the end of the day, really, the platform is great, and I believe in the platform. I believe in what we're doing so much. But just getting people to think about their unboxing experience and be like, hey, maybe I should try to measure that. I think that experimentation leads a lot of people back to us because they realize like, oh, there's a lot of value here on their own. So the I'm in kind of a right position as a marketer because like there aren't other people doing what we're doing, and all I really have to do is encourage someone to try on their own, and it works. Like it works for them, and all they have to do is write a couple handwritten notes and look at their reorder rate down the line, um, and then they end up coming back and being like, hey, that was a great idea. I should do more of this. Um, so a lot of the business, a lot of the marketing for me is just teaching people like you should look at your unboxing experience, and here's why. Like we saw this person, we did this, they made a couple $1,000,000 extra a year. If you just try it on your own, or we'll help you set up a test, um, you're going to see that this significantly outperforms what you're doing. And so, really, just helping to get people interested in wanting to experiment with their unboxing experience ultimately leads to them doing it and seeing results. And I mean, it's it's easy. It's really nice. It's very like it has a lot of benefits outside of just like reorder rates. You got higher revenue, more UGC, reduction time in like your next order or that time to the next purchase, and i- there's there's very little you can do to mess up your unboxing marketing aside from just not doing it. So I think that makes my life very simple.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's ways that you can forecast pretty easily what an expected revenue lift might be, just based off of their order volume and what their repurchase rates look like. Um, I know that was a pretty effective tool for us in selling other like tech platforms. We
Right.
can just take their orders and their AOV, and if we can increase any of those things by even 5% or 10%, the math just sort of plays out itself. And lends itself nicely to being able to give that merchant peace of mind before they take the leap.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like being able to give somebody kind of an anticipated ROI is like it's a godsend. Like you kind of need to do that. And if you know your model well enough to figure out like, oh, if we do this or that, we'll make this much money based on these values, like that that's a great place to be. And I feel like platforms should do a better job of doing that. Like when we give somebody like, hey, here's what we think will work for you, like I mean that
Mhm.
even if you say it's anticipated, right? It's a promise to the other person's like, ah, yes, this will absolutely happen for me. So you just got to know what you're doing well enough to give them something accurate.
Yeah, agreed. Well, hey, thank you so much for coming on. This was super insightful and definitely something that we haven't covered yet on the show. So, really unique perspective, and appreciate you joining. But before we hop off, can you let everybody know where they could, find you online or get in contact with you?
Sure, sure. So our unboxing experience platform is called UnDigital. And if you go to undigital.com, you can reach out to me pretty much everywhere on there. Like all roads lead to Rome. You're, um, yeah, just check out the platform. If you're not interested in the platform, just figure out your unboxing experience, please. Just take a moment.
I love it. Well, again, thank you for joining us. For everybody listening, as always, this is Brandon Amoroso. You can find me at brandonamoroso.com and electricmarketing.com. And we will see you next time.